Well, good morning, everybody. I want to do this live. Last night I did a live and I actually fell asleep. And it's funny, Donald J. Trump posting late last night as well, too. I'm going to redo the video because I had an overlap of another video from YouTube and immediately was hit with copyright. I see that this morning. I'm like, oh, geez, I got to redo the whole thing. So I've had a good sleep, and of course, that's going to work out just fine today. This is important to do. This video is really where Canada is heading, all the sub-regions, at least the western sub-regions, and it was really beautiful. This morning, a good friend of mine, Marilyn Burns, messaged me, shared a video clip, and she even says, for Alberta, if you're talking independence, but you don't want to change the form of government that Canada utilizes, and you want to continue that on, and you're going to hold that form of government, you're going to continue on as that form of government, it's not going to work. This is absolutely where the USA is today. You're seeing it with India, which is huge. We just watched the latest on Donald J. Trump 24 hours ago on India, and he hammers them with 25% tariff. They have no trade agreement. That's all products. And then there's a penalty. And of course, it gets into the whole BRICS, China, Russia, of course, Russia, military equipment entirely for India. And you have USA saying, why would you go about this? Now, what I'm about to show you is Canada, all parties, massive transition from Stephen Harper, who said, we need to transform Canada through 90% procurement of India's subjects. They're in a caste system, just like Canada, a BRICS nation. Stephen Harper said, we must utilize 90% of everyone we're taking in as we ramp up to mass immigration. We need to do this. Now, why would you target one specific country in the world at the 90 percentile and say, it's a good idea against everything that's the United States, we should ramp up immigration from this group because the caste system works really great for the Canadian monarchy? You're basically recreating BRICS on North American territory. That's what's happening. And then we see Justin Trudeau in 2018 take over and double down on Stephen Harper's numbers. Now remember, Canadians, before 2006 and Stephen Harper, before that, your immigration program was 84,000 a year. Stephen Harper ramped it up to nearly 300,000 a year. Justin Trudeau ramped it up as high as 1.3 million during COVID. Mark Carney's brought it back down to 480,000. Folks, 300,000 Stephen Harper, that's 1 million every 3 years. Our population went from 34 million now today to 41 million. This is the agenda. It's called the Century Initiative. It's a global takeover, a hostile takeover of a country through mass immigration. It is colonialism. It is modern colonialism. It's taking a set of beliefs, systems, and replacing the domestic ones. The idea of nationalism in Canada is out the window. The idea of Canada having an identity is out the window. Do the math in just 10 years. Do the math within just 30 years, 2050. What would Canada look like in 2050? You would call it India. You would call it communist China. It won't look anything like it does today. We even have the numbers, which I've produced many times, that effectually by 2030, Canada's over. Voting or ideals or any memories of a Canada pre-1995 will be gone, lost forever. History of Canada will be lost forever. They will write it the way they wish to. This is huge alarm bells for the United States. And again, we're going to go into the slideshow now. It's 37 slides. I can't make up all of this is logged on both US government websites and Canada's government websites. Not mine, theirs. Their publications, word for word. Donald J. Trump and the White House published back in January what the results of actions of countries would be, what were the lines in the sand, and where they would go. What we see of USMCA is, I can say beyond any doubt, as it stands today and where Canada's going, especially out west with the western provinces, there will be no USMCA. We already know there is no foreign investment from any of the European countries. That's 28. Everything of Germany is gone. Our LNG out to Europe is gone. Oil out to Europe is gone. It's all going to be accumulated from the USA for 3 straight years. This is also absolutely the truth of Japan and South Korea. So this is monumental economies. When you start looking at all the economies of the world, where does that leave Canada? BRICS, China, India. And we're going to go through the partnerships signed by your Canadian politicians. This was Stephen Harper, Justin Trudeau, and absolutely Mark Carney. It doesn't matter whom you elect. Until you start hearing this out of the mouth of Pierre Poilievre, which you're not, he's not addressing the core issues that the USA has with Canada today. They refuse to. All parties. It doesn't matter whom you elect. You can't elect yourself out of this with Conservative or Liberal, NDP, Green, all the rest of the what you call left, when they're all in the same autocratic sphere up here, which transcends left and right, completely opposite of the United States and where the United States is going. So without further ado, we're going to hit this piece by piece in great detail, as it really is. Okay, so this was Donald J. Trump's post just 24 hours ago. He says, remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous, obnoxious monetary barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting August 1st. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Mega. Right here, I want everyone, every American, every Canadian, this is undeniable. It is really very problematic and symptomatic of what's wrong with Canada. And I've felt this, seen this my entire life. So here's Canada Visa, Canadian Immigration News, comes right off the Government of Canada website. This was Canadian Prime Minister highlights the importance of Indian immigrants. And you can see, written by the Canada Visa team on the 8th of July 2015, Stephen Harper in power. You can see they put the Canada and India flags together. Prime Minister Stephen Harper delivered a keynote speech in Toronto at the Pearson Convention Centre on Thursday. During his speech, Mr. Harper emphasized that India has become the prime source country for immigration to Canada due to recent changes made by the Canadian government to facilitate immigration from India to Canada. And I want every Canadian to understand, you spent more on immigration than, right, at this time, than you've ever put into your annual GDP for military. That Stephen Harper thought that mass immigration was more important than NATO, NORAD, and our national defense. He upped the payment on immigration to way beyond a percentage of our GDP that's normal. Anywhere in the world, you can't find any model like this anywhere else in the world. It far outpaces everybody. Immigration enriches Canada, said Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Today, India is Canada's top source country for immigrants, and this explains why Canada's Indo-Canadian community is over 1.2 million strong. Today, it's approaching 6.5 million. So think about that in 10 years. Again, what I was telling you, if that's 6 million over 10 years, where does that put us in the next 26 years? Well, it puts us at the 20 million, or half of Canada's population will be sourced from India, meaning every other Canadian citizen will be born from India. And there's also China on this too. Now, it's the second highest behind India, but think about this and where Canada is going. What are they trying to recreate here? A BRICS nation. It's colonialism. It's what was done to the First Peoples. It's now being done in Canada. And it's undeniable. The American government sees it. The world sees it, really. And like I said, for all the problems of UK, Canada's program far surpasses UK by leaps and bounds. The Century Initiative were the only ones who produced it. Only 21 countries even bothered to sign on it. It wasn't ratified in international law. It was actually shot down by all the allies and has been rejected by a vast majority of the nations of the world. Everyone said, yikes, why would you want to destroy your country? Well, Stephen Harper wanted to. And why? Because he's a strong globalist. Mr. Harper referred to the 8 Canadian trade and consular offices in India. So they built these offices in New Delhi, Chandahar, Ahmedabad, and Bangalore. He compared how his conservative government has made changes to immigration regulations, making it easier, to get mass immigration sourced from India. So fast forward, that was 2015. In 2018, Canada and India formalized their bilateral relationship as a strategic partnership. This was solidified during state visit by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to India, where multiple agreements and initiatives were announced to enhance cooperation across various sectors. Now, this is where we get into serious problems. I'm going to admit it. This is basically from Stephen Harper to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, where they started to attack the United States of America across various sectors. This partnership built on shared values of democracy, diversity, and the rule of law, with a focus on strengthening economic ties, promoting innovation, and addressing global challenges. And we're going to get into this in a minute, what USA refuses. And remember, everybody, this is all going on where we have economic, military, and strategic trade and military agreements with the United States that we wouldn't do this. So Stephen Harper started to breach serious solidified agreements with the United States. Justin Trudeau did, and I guess, United States has had enough. We're going to get into what they post here this year. But Canada hosts one of the largest Indian origin communities with 1.3 million residents, or about 4% of its population. India is a priority market for Canada, ranking its 10th largest trading partner in 2022. India has also been Canada's top source of international students since 2018. So all of our universities, all of our universities, and I already proved this in 2016. I took a candidate in Alberta at the University of Alberta, and I showed him, we went door knocking around the entirety of the campus in that community, that MLA section of Edmonton, Alberta. And that's just one university, University of Alberta. And every door we knocked on was Indian or Chinese. You had to go through about 400 doors to find a Canadian. 400 to 1, meaning our universities entirely are almost all for India. What does that tell you about what Canada's plan and what direction they started going. And again, it starts in 2006, ramped up by the end of Stephen Harper massively, and then of course taken over by Trudeau without any change, and in fact made it even worse, right? So these parties are not different. They're not different at all. Canada and India share a strategic partnership formalized in 2018. Are you ready for this? And this is highlighted for all of you. Focused on areas like foreign policy, trade, and investment. While the relationship has seen periods of strain, particularly surrounding allegations related to the murder of a Canadian citizen, both nations continue to emphasize the importance of collaboration in sectors like education, energy, and technology. Folks, education, energy, technology, okay? Because we have absolute enshrined military and economic agreements with the United States. We can't do that. We can't do that. But we have, and we did. So I'm giving you the best of the best in the United States of America. I want you all to look at it. These are people with exceptional experience over many presidencies and also high academic standing, but practical. These are think tanks who have worked for many presidencies of the United States. Trade war or USMCA upgrade, one or the other, but not both. Okay? And they even get into the Canada Institute there. This I went through with Benjamin Ebley. It's why I've tagged. We went through this immediately in January, first week of January after confirmation. We were going through this. I remember even the late nights in my car, idling cold winter, and we were going through this, me and Benjamin Ebley. And this we have to revisit because this is going to tell you everything you need to know about where we're going as a country, what red lines we have now crossed, and the likelihood of USMCA being recertified in July 1st of 2026 is likely intangible, meaning it's not going to happen. That means 35% and 50% tariffs currently will be all-encompassing. And you're going to read along with me. You're going to find out what America First trade policy is, what red lines they have for Canada in the sand, and Canada put up the middle finger, elbows up, and we've now crossed the threshold this summer. I told everybody it was coming. It comes from this document. And again, when was this published and put up? That your Canadian government, liberal, conservative, opposition, should have gone through entirely and took this to be absolutely serious. This is the White House. This is on the website for all of you today. There are no secrets for America. They're straight shooters. They say, listen, these are the laws, these are the relationships, these are the treaties, and these are the trade negotiated agreements. You will follow this, or the following things are going to happen to you. And as we go through this, everybody, we've surpassed a bunch of these things. And anyone telling you that Canada's going to get updated USMCA or that negotiation's possible hasn't read this document that, again, has been available since the first week of January, since his confirmation. So they already had this written, ready to go before he took office. And I already knew because it was in their platform while they were campaigning for a whole year. So the United States Trade Representative, which is also tagged in this video, shall commence the public consultation process set out in Section 4611B of Title 19 United States Code with respect to the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, in preparation for the July 2026 review of the USMCA. Additionally, the United States Trade Representative, in consultation with the heads of other relevant executive departments and agencies, shall assess the impact of USMCA on American workers, farmers, ranchers, service providers, and other businesses to make recommendations regarding the United States participation in the agreement. This is the year leading up to next year that they say, do we want to continue? And we're going to go through the rules of all this, right? So also report appropriate congressional committees on the operation of the USMCA, related matters consistent with Section 4611B, Title 19, United States Code. The Secretary of the Treasury shall review and assess the policies, practice of major United States trading partners with respect to the rate of exchange between their currencies and the United States dollar pursuant to Section 4421 of Title 19, United States Code, and Sections 5305 of Title 22, United States Code. The Secretary of the Treasury shall recommend appropriate measures to counter currency manipulation or misalignment that prevents the balance of payments adjustments or the trading partners with unfair competitive advantage in international trade shall identify. China, India. And we're under a military agreement with the United States. The Secretary of the Treasury shall review and assess the policies and practices of major United States trading partners, which we are number one, with respect to the rate of exchange between their currencies and the United States dollar pursuant to 4421 Title 19, United States Code, Sections 5305, Title 22, United States Code. The Secretary shall recommend appropriate measures to counter currency manipulation. Oh, okay, sorry. I did that. The United States Trade Representative shall review existing United States trade agreements and sectoral trade agreements and recommend any revisions that may be necessary or appropriate to achieve and maintain general level of reciprocal and mutually advantageous concessions with respect to free trade agreement partner countries. The United States Trade Representative shall identify countries that the United States can negotiate agreements on bilateral or sectoral specific basis to obtain export market access for American workers, farmers, ranchers, service providers, and businesses shall make recommendations regarding such potential agreements. That's not happening with Canada. That's important here. As you all know, and it's been published in the media, that is not happening. Donald Trump won't even see Mark Carney today. And I'm going to get into why that's important. The United States Trade Representative shall identify... Okay. We did that. The Secretary of Commerce shall review policies and regulations regarding the application of anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws, including with regard to transnational subsidies, cost adjustments, affiliations, and zeroing. Further, the Secretary of Commerce shall review procedures, conducted verifications pursuant to Section 1677 of Title 19, United States Code, and assess whether these procedures sufficiently induce compliance by foreign respondents and governments involved in the proceedings. The Secretary of Commerce shall consider modifications to these procedures as appropriate. The Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and Senior Counselor of Trade and Manufacturing in consultation with the United States Trade Representative shall assess loss or tariff repercussions and the risk from importing counterfeit or contraband drugs, example fentanyl, that could result in current implementation of to protect both the revenue of the United States and the public health by preventing unlawful importations. The Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative, shall investigate whether any foreign country subjects United States citizens or corporations to discriminatory or extraterritorial taxes pursuant to Section 891 of Title 26 United States Code. All these things have happened. Canada removed that tax. It's right there. Canada's trying to do the checklist on this. There's a whole pile you just read they can't do. The India, China, they can't do it. The United States Trade Representative, in consultation with the Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, shall review the impact of trade agreements, including World Trade Organization agreement, government procurement, on the volume of federally covered by the Executive Order 13788 of April 2017, Buy American, Hire American. Canada's not doing that. The United States Trade Representative in consultation with the Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing shall review the impact of all trade agreements, including the World Trade Organization Agreement on government procurement we just went through. Economic and trade relations with the People's Republic of China. This is where it gets crazy. This is where Canada out west and energy is screwed. So China, PRC, right? People's Republic of China, Communist China. United States representative shall review the economic and trade agreement between the government, the United States of America, and the government of the People's Republic of China to determine whether the PRC is acting in accordance with the agreement and shall recommend appropriate actions taken based on the findings of this review, up to including the imposition of tariffs and other measures as needed, which we're watching. We're watching, and they have another 6 days left before they get smacked. And Canada has made an agreement, starting with Stephen Harper in the same years, against the United States with the People's Republic of China. You can't have both ways. You can't. And that's what the White House is telling you here. How is Canada going to get out of Section 3? How are they going to get out of that? They've already screwed us. They already have. That was done by Stephen Harper, cemented entirely, and then ramped up, revisited, signed, sealed, certified by Justin Trudeau. And I don't see Mark Carney announcing any end to any of that or holding an emergency session, implementing Parliament right now on an emergency basis to get all this done and get legislation passed. He doesn't want to touch any of it. The United States Trade Representative shall assess May 14, 2024 report entitled 4-year, I gotta go to the next page. Assess May 14, 2024 report entitled 4-year review of actions taken in Section 301 investigation, China's acts, policies, and practice related to what? Technology transfer, intellectual property, and innovation. All this listed with India, Canada, India, where China and India, and you saw Trump's post, he goes through these things, and now they're sitting there going, India's right there with China and Russia. They're staying in the BRICS. They're doing this. Canada is working with them. You heard the publication that I just presented to you right after I showed you Donald J. Trump's post on India. And then I showed you what Stephen Harper said and published, what's on the Government of Canada website, that uses all of those words. All of those words. Everything that they don't want. And look, anti-dumping, circumvention of industrial supply chains run by USA to China. This is what India is doing too, and even Russia. Canada's in there like a dirty shirt. Again, who made that deal? Stephen Harper. Who cemented it, added to it? Justin Trudeau. Who is sitting on their hands pretending it doesn't exist? Pretending this doesn't exist by the United States since January of this year, everybody. Canada can't change direction here. Not without a parliament in session and actual laws and actual debate on all of these things. This document that's posted right on the White House, it's been there again since Donald Trump was ascended, lists everything that Canada has to capitulate to. Do you have these things? Oh, yes, you do. Energy? Wow. And they're doing it. And the Western provinces are. So, proposals regarding permanent normal trade relations with PRC and recommendations regarding any proposal changes such as legislative proposals. Secretary of Commerce will assess the status of the United States intellectual property rights such as patents, copyrights, trademarks conferred upon PRC persons, right? This is where Canada becomes dangerous, right? We share all this military knowledge, cross-border and NATO, NORAD, procurement, military, that's largely U.S., and then we have deals with China and India to give all that up to them, right? Can USA legitimately, under national security, trust Canada anymore? Conservative? Absolutely, Donald J. Trump doesn't. He's read, obviously, everything on the website, and it shows in the exact words Stephen Harper hands all of that over with an agreement with India, which means he handed it all over to China because the two countries are in the BRICS. They have an agreement signed between the two of them, right? And Canada handed this over, and people wonder why Donald J. Trump hates Pierre Poilievre and wants nothing to do with the Conservative Party of Canada. I just showed you what you find on the Government of Canada's website, published by Stephen Harper in the day. Remember when Donald J. Trump came to power in the first term? Then they had 4 years off to study all of that, know Canada what it is, and look how he came out of the gate swinging. Look at this. Additional economic security matters. The Secretary of Commerce, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and heads of other relevant agencies, shall conduct full economic and security review of the United States industrial and manufacturing base to assess whether it's necessary to initiate investigations to adjust imports threatening the national security of the United States under Section 1862 of Title 19 United States Code, all listed in the USMCA. And Canada wouldn't do these things, but Canada did all these things, kept going after that was ratified, all in violation. Folks, do you think there's no notification that has to be in under USMCA, which maybe I'm jumping ahead here. I'm not going to do that yet, but we got to revisit that and not forget it. The Secretary of State and the Secretary of Commerce, in cooperation with the heads of other agencies with export control authorities, shall review the United States export control system and advise on modifications in light of the developments involving strategic adversaries or geopolitical rivals, as well as all other relevant national security and global considerations. Specifically, the Secretary of State and Secretary of Commerce shall assess and make recommendations regarding how to maintain, obtain, and enhance our nation's technological edge and how to identify and eliminate loopholes in existing export controls, specifically those that enable the transfer of strategic goods, software, and technology to countries with strategic and or are proxies. In addition, they shall assess and make recommendations regarding the export and control enforcement policies and practice enforcement mechanisms to incentivize compliance on foreign countries, including appropriate trade and national security measures. That's USMCA. And again, this is all over USMCA. When I started this is the section under USMCA. All of that USA's got against Canada, going, these are serious problems. The Secretary of Commerce shall review and recommend appropriate action with respect to the rulemaking, the Office of Information and Communication Technology Service, right? All those things listed in the agreement between India and Canada, first by Stephen Harper and then ratified in 2018 by Justin Trudeau after they had signed USMCA. Think about that. After they went ahead and did this deal with India, who's in BRICS, who has a complete partnership with Russia and absolutely China. And America listed all of this January of this year, saying these things got to end. Canada isn't making any movement. The Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of Commerce as appropriate, the heads of any other relevant agencies shall review whether Executive Order 14105 of August 9th, 2023, addressing the United States investment in certain national security technologies and products in countries of concern should be modified or rescinded and replaced, and assess whether the final rule entitled Provisions Pertaining to U.S. Investments in Certain National Security Technologies and Products in Countries of Concern, 89 FedReg 9398, November 15, 2024, which implements Executive Order 14105, includes sufficient controls to address national security threats. The Secretary of the Treasury shall make recommendations based on the findings of this review, including potential modifications to outbound investment security programs. Canadians, right there, we have crossed a red line. Canada doesn't get any investment for the next 3 years from the European Union, from Japan, or South Korea. And the European Union is 28 countries. That means all that stuff and talk and baloney of Germany and many others is gone. Automotives, LNG, nitrogen, all these procurements are gone. They're with the United States now. They check-marked that paragraph. And Canada is on the other side with the BRICS nations. Again, by who? Undeniably, conservatives and liberals entirely. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget so says any distorting impact on foreign government financial contributions or subsidies on the United States federal procurement programs and proposed guidance, regulations, or legislation to combat such distortion. All listed against Canada, the dairy, the wood, so many, pharma, a whole bunch. And they're saying we're not having any of it. The Secretary of Commerce and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall assess unlawful migration and fentanyl flows from Canada, Mexico, and the PRC and any other relevant jurisdictions and recommend appropriate trade and national security measures to resolve that emergency. What just happened to India? What starts on the title of this? 25% tariffs and a penalty. They're nailed. Canada's caught. Do you know how many arrests that continue to happen in the United States under FBI, Homeland Security, and other agencies of policing coming together? Department of Justice has them all. And over again, these are permanent residents in Canada from India coming through Alberta, BC heavily, but Alberta too with only one major border. And they're catching them. They're catching them where they crossed legally, however they're illegal. This is happening in the western provinces as they've set up all these cartels, all from the Crown Opium Crisis. It's China and India, all precursors, if not imported to Canada or built right now in Canada, using that agreement through China and India, and USA's seen it. And they're saying, no more, we're done. And Canada isn't shutting down any of it. In fact, they continue on with immigration status quo. In fact, bring in all your family members too. Who cares? Who cares? F USA. That's what's going on under Mark Carney. These are undeniable. These are check mark items listed. And again, what is this all in reference to? USMCA. We've gone way overboard. Right? I want you to see this. Results, wrong reviews, investigations, fine identifications recommended in what? April 1st, 2025. Huh? Everyone was making fun of Trump. He did all those things. They did their unified report. You saw the tariff regimes. Canada sits with 8 other countries as the worst tariffed countries in the entire world. And everyone's telling you from the Crown side, don't worry, we're protected under USMCA. USMCA that can be terminated July 1st, 2025. Look at this, Director of the Office of Management, right? Delivered by me by the Director of the Office of Management and Budget by April 30th, 2025. That came and went. Yeah. This memorandum shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. This memorandum is not intended to, does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable by law or equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person, meaning who cares about Canada's USMCA? There's nothing that can be usurped in this memorandum or give any privilege to a country like Canada through its existing trade agreement. That's what it says. So here's another one, White and Case, huge American, and there's David E. Bond, Gregory Spack, Francisco del Rosenzweig, Carlos Vijar, Karen Luna, Ian Sacamano, and all these people you look, they all have extremely high academic standing, and they've actually worked in these think tanks for many, many governments over the year. North America prepares for 2026 USMCA review and potential renegotiation. Big word there, potential. They're not sure it will be. And they go through this. Look at this. Are beginning domestic consultations ahead of the scheduled 26 joint review, which could lead to changes in the agreement. Under a novel provision in USMCA Article 34, the 2026 review also starts a 10-year clock for expiration of the free trade agreement. To prevent expiration in 2036, parties must submit notifications at or after the 2026 review approving the renewal of the USMCA for another 16-year term. For the United States, the Trump administration will likely withhold USA renewal approval to compel a partial renegotiation of certain terms and commitments to the joint review. The full scope of the USA plan has not been developed, but initiatives under discussion in Washington include notifications to the automotive industry rules of origin, strengthened forced labor import prohibitions, new restrictions on Chinese companies in North America, and resolutions to ongoing USA implementation disputes, which we just went through. So even them, they're already going, and this is the first 100 days, right? We've already succeeded and gone over those minimums. 25% is the list, and since that time, we're now at 35%, meaning as it stands today, USA will not be renegotiating USMCA. We've gone over those provisions, the 25% tariff rate. We're at 35%. The first 100 days is a podcast that explores the legal, regulatory, and policy implications of the new U.S. administration have on global businesses across industries. The series features our lawyer views on that topic that matter most to our clients. Article 34.7 requires the parties to hold a joint review of the agreement 6 years after its entry into force, which is July 1st, 2026. In review, the parties may submit recommendations for revisions to the agreement, which the group would consider. Article 34.7 also establishes that the agreement expires in 2036. So if USA doesn't submit July 1st of next year, if they don't submit for the agreement review at that review, it's automatically terminated. See that? The 6-year review is the first opportunity for the parties to notify that they approve or oppose renewal of the agreement. A notification that the party opposes a 2036 renewal would trigger further review meetings until the negotiations address dissenting parties' concerns or the USMCA expires. Trump can terminate it next year, and he probably will. The exact procedure, ready for this? The exact procedure for conducting the review means undecided, and there is no precedent to follow. The USMCA's text describes the review only in broad terms. If the parties decide to make amendments to the text of the agreement, Article 34.3 provides the amendment shall enter into force 60 days after the date in which the last party provided written notice to the other parties of the approval of the amendment in accordance with its applicable legal procedures. The United States would likely be the primary force behind any changes to the USMCA during the review, because the United States was the party that originally proposed the review system. Officials from the first Trump administration, which negotiated USMCA, saw the review system as an action-forcing event the United States could leverage to obtain desired updates to the agreement. In recent remarks about his trade policy agenda, President-elect Donald Trump stated, upon taking office, I will formally notify Mexico and Canada of my intention to invoke the 6-year renegotiation provision of USMCA that I put in. Canada and Mexico, meanwhile, may adopt more defensive strategies. Preserve market access and reassure investors, right? Preserve market access to China and India, BRICS, and reassure global investors, because they certainly aren't Canadians. Who are the investors? We know it's not European Union countries, we know it's not Japan, and we certainly know it's not South Korea. So who are these investors? India and China? Russia? Who? Right? I don't think it's Russia, but definitely China and India. The key question for negotiators would be how far they want to push the review and renegotiation, as investor confidence depends on the parties maintaining a credible commitment to renewing the agreement by a 2036. While negotiators could win some improvements to agreement, a prolonged dispute could generate concerns among investors about the possibility of a renewal failure, which China and India are the investors. Of course, they're going to say, okay, F Canada, right? We don't have our back door. The United States will conduct an internal policy review in 2025. It's going on right now. You're seeing it. It's called trade embargoes and sanctions. They've completely removed all of our allies from investing in Canada for the next 3 years. The year preceding U.S. to help formulate and articulate its position according to the United States USA implementing law, the United States representative, USTR, is required to initiate public consultations on the review at least 270 days before the review, which would be around October 2025. There is the date, folks. October 2025. If they don't put that in, that means USMCA is going to be terminated. We're going to know we're already August, September, October. We're going to know in 2 months' time the damage done to Canada. And if we don't see that notification put in, Canada's going to lose USMCA. It's that simple. See, USTR must report to Congress outlining its plans. The report to Congress should describe the actions Trump administration recommend to the USMCA and a decision on whether Trump administration would confirm at the 2026 review that the United States wishes to extend the USMCA and go past 2036, which that is what it is in 2026. Will they renew for another 16 years? And I think we all know that's not going to happen, not as it is today. So are you ready? Though the United States has not issued a policy agenda for the negotiations, some general themes have emerged in Washington that the Trump administration may be interested in taking up. Right? And this is all just guessing. And we're seeing by what Trump has implemented, the deals he got with our other allies and our Canadian trade provisions, that it's not going to happen. And here's new cooperation mechanisms for supply chain disruptions, expanded anti-forced labor import provisions, new measures to jointly block Chinese companies from North American market. Well, that breaches Canada's China FIPA deal, right? That Harper signed again. That's his baby. So how are we going to get this one, right? If we can't get this, USA isn't going to renew. They're going to say either you adopt this, right? Which, they're guessing white and case. I mean, they're right. That's what America would want to see, but Canada's never going to give that. They're never going to give up China and India. Again, if you don't believe it, look at your immigration. Yeah, new border management practices, special rule of origin electric vehicles, expanded provision, digital services, new areas of digital regulation like artificial intelligence, and accession mechanisms for other countries in Latin America. Yeah. Automotive, Canada can't capitulate on that either. Like I said, all of these, they can go at that somehow Canada's going to make all these things happen, but it's not going to happen. And remember, when is Parliament in session and when can they actually make laws and pass laws? Near the end of October, October 27th, 2025, which means your Parliament is never going to achieve any of these things in Canada. None of them. So white in case, this is all gone, right? So they're saying on October 5th, 14, 15, 2024, they've already started. Just so you know, a whole year ago, Mexico's already started. Did you know? Canada hasn't done anything. Canada hasn't done anything. Oh, what's going on here? Yeah, okay. Give me a sec. I gotta get back. I don't know why that closed out. But Mexico has been on this and making changes. And as you can see, their Canada's tariffs are much higher than Mexico's. And they're both protected under USMCA, at least until July 1st, 2026. We'll get back to that. Sorry, everybody. Getting through it, though. That's good. Almost there. Where is it? Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, so Mexico begins industrial consultations and initial contacts. Canada isn't doing any of this. Mexico started a whole year early, everybody. Mexico's way, way ahead of Canada on this. Canada is sitting on their hands. Your country, your provinces and territories have some kind of mindset, colonial mindset, that they're going to beat the United States and USA can kiss our ass. Well, Mexico's been hard at work. Way hard at work. Look at that. Look at that. A whole year ago they started that. Look, starting gun for promotion, defense, discussion on the USMCA on October 17th, 2024. They knew they started an entire year earlier, even before Trump was in office. But look at this. Mexico does not plan to start... Sorry, I'm going to send this. Mexico does not plan to start formal bilateral talks with the United States until January 2025. And you can see it in the tariff that obviously Mexico is doing substantially better than Canada. This is a big one. Council on Foreign Relations, huge think tank, right? Greenberg Center for Geoeconomic Studies, Trump and future of USMCA, right? They go into all this stuff. And when you look at the date of this, they went through all of this early on in the year, right? The future of USMCA. Here's the Peterson Institute for International Economics. The future of USMCA. What's next for USA trade relations with Canada and Mexico? They got some pretty big names there and people with track records. President Trump's trade actions in the second term have upended provisions of the United States-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement, negotiated and signed in 2020, the last year of his first term in office. Still, USMCA's complex terms governing a variety of issues remain in the pact despite Trump's threats and imposition of tariffs on Canada and Mexico, leaving the future relations with the two most important U.S. trading partners uncertain. The guide explains why the USMCA nevertheless remains the core of the three countries' relationships, what's at stake in many different aspects of their interdependence, and possible paths forward for negotiations to try and resolve. This page will be updated to make the trade deals subjected to a new round of conflicts and possible adjustments in the months ahead. And they give you a link there to follow it for the most. Here's another one, International Economic Law and Policy blog. This is a big one too. The USMCA review of the USMCA, if it survives, needs to address national security loophole. And that's the problem. Canada is going through China and India, and it's a huge, huge loophole. It usurps U.S.'s national security. Canada abandons it entirely. It's all about money. It's all about making rich people rich. They don't care about autocracy. They don't care about liberty. They definitely don't care about citizens. And this is a great publication to read. And in the end, it basically shows you, and this isn't even updated to the new, this one goes through and tells you about the 25% mark, countries that exceed that, and where they're going. And in the end, they conclude that as we are today, Canada isn't going to get a USMCA. So when these mighty think tanks with track records start talking like that from the United States, that should tell you everything you need to know. Are you ready for this? Despite negotiating the current USMCA deal, President Trump now says it needs major changes or cancellation amid rising tariffs and industrial backlash. That was May 19th, 2025. You've heard it. People say, oh, he's not going to do that. The best minds of America, the best institutions, the best economics groups that have worked for many presidencies, Democrat, Republican, tell you about all the problems and the backdoor loopholes of Canada, and how if they don't get that changed, it has to be cancelled, or it's going to be cancelled. It won't survive. Coming as quick as 11 months from now. I will know absolutely by the near end, by October 17th latest, I'm going to know if USMCA is terminated. And basically you can say that's a little more than 2 months from now. 2 months from now. We're there, Canadians. We're there. See, President Trump is calling for a renegotiation or possible termination of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. 5 years after touting it as a major economic achievement, the announcement follows a series of new tariffs that have disrupted the North American auto and raised questions about the future of cross-border trade. That's it. Folks, you've got the dates, you've got a timeline. It's been there all along. I started this trek December 2nd, 2024. Here we are. I presented massive. A lot of it's been erased on Facebook. Even this video I've given you all, this won't survive 30 days. Jonathan Bahai, he could probably publish it. That'll be there. But we have key dates, everybody. We have key dates you've got to watch. You're going to see it by between October 14th to 17th. We're going to find out if USA is in fact terminating this deal. By July 1st, 2026, we'll find out absolutely if we're eating all the tariffs on all industries. We have 1 year. And just to close out here, everybody, Donald J. Trump is in transition too. The Trump administration, the Americans are in transition out of Canada. I've talked about that a lot. I know those videos don't exist, but it's about changing procurement and purchasing in the United States and how they make things, where they go to get their parts, pieces, their value and supply chains. And right now, it's all focused on cutting Canada out. If we continue to let Mark Carney sit on his hands, we continue to let the Western premiers go out to China, India, the way they are, all provinces and territories in massive immigration to these countries, we are going to go absolutely into enemy of the United States mode. which means at some point it's going to go from economic to military intervention. If anyone doesn't see that, see how it's going to be if we have a cancelled USMCA, and Canada's response and provincial response is to ramp up more from India, more from China. Do you think the United States wants a BRICS nation on its doorstep, on its border, surrounded by Mexico and then an India, China to the north, a BRICS central hub right on their northern border? I don't think so. And if anyone denies that, there is nothing but evidence to the absolute contrary. Again, what is Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre doing or presenting or enacting or publishing that serves to answer USA, serves to make for an argument for a new USMCA, or in fact serves to make an argument that we aren't going to be in some kind of military conflict with the United States in possibly 11 months' time? Where are we going to be if we have no USMCA? We're under 35% tariffs, which dunks all our industries. USA is making a transition right now, preparing for that, securing new countries to replace us, and then Canada's searching new countries to replace USA, which would be absolutely India and China. Again, this post 24 hours ago on India, Trump and the administration see it, are calling it out, and are ready for go time. And Canada is on the wrong side of this. Only 8 countries in the world are at the tariff regimes Canada's at. Only 8 out of 194 nations. Wake up. Share, share, share. Get this out there. Thanks for your time, everybody. Bye now.